So from this minute, as of 5 o'clock tonight Eastern Time, the Greater Sydney area is subjected to some extra COVID restrictions. Masks are compulsory for indoor gatherings now and on public transport. Now, there are plenty of pandemic posers who are going to love that. Some people I've seen over the last few weeks have still been wearing masks outdoors on sunny days when there's been no community infections at all. Yes, we have most of the media and most of our politicians out to scare us at the moment, out to create as much concern as possible. Journalists beat it up for the drama, for the stories, for the ratings. Politicians fuel the hysteria to underline their own strength and ensure that they reap the benefits at election time for keeping us safe. Anyway, the one case we told you about in Sydney last night is now two cases. This bloke infected his wife, and because he didn't get it direct from hotel quarantine, there must be at least one other person out there who's passed it on, probably more. I hasten to add what most media never add here, and that is that no one is actually sick. It's all about the infection count for journalists and politicians, never mind that no one who's caught the disease in Australia this year has died. In fact, very few have even been sick. That is the good news. Still, for the Mother's Day weekend, there was no lockdown for Sydney, but there is what I would call the Taliban trifecta. No dancing, no singing, and no drinking, at least while you're standing up for some reason. It's going to be some Mother's Day for me. That big song and dance routine I'd worked up with the boys is going to have to be put on hold. We'll have to all lie down and drink some wine. Look, seriously, on all the evidence, these measures might be unnecessary, given how good the New South Wales authorities have been at contact tracing. But the footy is going ahead across Sydney, along with just about everything else. So if there has to be a little outbreak, better that it's in Premier Gladys Berejiklian's bailiwick than some other state.
In fact, in other states, they would have locked down the whole city, they would have closed businesses, they would have stopped events, they would have said you can't dance at weddings. We're not doing any of that. This is a very proportionate response to the risk.
Yeah, Berejiklian's own treasurer is in home isolation because he'd been to the same cafe as the first infected man. And despite the pragmatism of New South Wales now and in the past, people are already cancelling their travel plans to Sydney because they know from past experience that their own states, their own premiers could leave them stranded away from home at the drop of a hat by closing state borders. New Zealand has already paused flights from New South Wales. And just listen to the Western Australian Premier this afternoon.
We hope New South Wales can get on top of this outbreak quickly. We wish them all the best and we have offered our help should they need it.
What a joke. How would this bloke help? Close his border? Recommend a 3-day lockdown? It just goes to show that after 16 months of this pandemic, despite how well this country's managed it, we are going backwards in this country in some of our responses and public debate. Hotel quarantine has saved us. Fewer than 1 in every 100 cases emanates from hotel quarantine. So it's 99% effective, and I don't think we could expect better than that. And our case fatality rate in this country is about 1%, which means, of course, that it's actually 0% for everyone except the elderly. And we've already vaccinated almost 2.5 million people, mainly the elderly, the vulnerable. Yet all the talk and the action in this country remains on restrictions, on lockdowns, on closed borders, even to our own citizens stuck overseas, those stuck in India. They refused the chance to even come home to their own country.
We will get an update on how that pause is progressing, and the information I already have is the pause is working. The pause is putting us in a place to ensure that we'll be able to safely bring people home.
What do you mean the pause is working? How could it not work? You stop people coming in from a country, then they're not going to bring the disease from that country. No one doubts it would work. The idea is you catch the disease in quarantine. No one thought that the pause would stop the disease coming from India, won't stop it coming from other countries where there is no pause. But the point about the pause is that it's wrong. These people are Australians and they have a right to come home. We have a responsibility to take them and to help them. And as I said, the place to deal with the virus is in hotel quarantine, which remains an outstanding success in this country. You get the feeling the Prime Minister knows that what I just said is right because he's already promising to get more Aussies home.
I think there is room for all states and territories to do more, just like there is room for the Commonwealth to keep doing our bit. We've invested $500 million in the Howard Springs facility, which this month goes to 2,000 capacity, and that's where we will be bringing Australians from India home.
Fair enough, but all this should have been done without the pause on people returning from India, a pause that has more than another week to run. I'll show you some more figures tomorrow night, actually. I'll go through some detail that proves this point absolutely, about how we've applied drastically different rules for Australians in India to what we applied last year and still apply to Australians in the US, the UK and Europe. Anyway, in the meantime, in case we needed reminding, this weekend in Sydney, even under the most sensible pandemic management in the country, we're being told to put up with new measures because a timid nation continues to act with what they would call an abundance of caution.
We're saying go about your normal business, enjoy Mother's Day, enjoy what you do normally, just take that extra bit of care.
Look, I said a year ago that we couldn't keep going on like this forever. There's still no reason to behave like this now. We will eventually wake up and realise we have to live with the disease, albeit fortunately now with vaccines and better treatments and some quarantine still in place. But it's looking like the unofficial eradication policy is going to continue for a while yet, at least until after the federal election.